And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey, today we're going to be talking about a new expansion for Alien Frontiers, and this is Alien Frontiers Factions. Alien Frontiers Faction is the first expansion. There's a couple others mini expansions, but this one is a big one. This one adds a fifth player, it adds factions, it adds agendas. Well, rather than me telling you about it, we're going to take a look at it, but do remember that I'm not going to explain how to play Alien Frontiers. Go watch my video on the original game. I'm just going to show you what this expansion adds. So let's take a look at some of the things that come in Alien Faction Pack number 1. First is a new player color. Yay, purple dice and purple things. So that's great because it allows you to use purple, and I like purple. Another thing that this allows you to do essentially is to add a fifth player to the game. Now this is something that I personally don't recommend because I think 5 players is way too many players for this game. Alien Frontiers, it just runs a little long with 5 players. But if you do want 5 players, this allows you to do it. There's a few other rules in the rule book on how to do that. You say, well, what is this purple rocket? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's because this game adds a rocket for each color to use for scoring purposes. And that's just a cool feature. I believe some of the players who originally kickstarted Alien Frontiers got rockets somehow, or somebody. I've seen rockets in some places, but it's just a nice way to keep score. Looks a little better than using one of these colony pieces to keep score. So that's a nice addition. The game also comes with 8 new tech cards, and you can see here at the top, it's really hard to see. I don't know if I can focus up anymore. I can't. But at the very top, there's a little red marking there in the first one to show that this is the first expansion. But these are some new technologies that have to do with the different things in this set. For example, this says players a limit of 4 agenda cards while they possess this card. And on your turn, you can flip this card to flip an agenda card face up and score the victory points whether or not you've satisfied that card's condition. You say, what is all that about? Well, I'll get to that in a second with agenda cards, but this is one that actually has to do with the stuff in the set. But not everything is like that. For example, here we have the Chameleon Cloak, which I can discard to swap all of the colonies on 2 territories. That's a pretty powerful card, and it's a pretty neat special ability. The Lunar Tunnel, where I can pay an energy when I dock a ship at the lunar mine to get an extra, or I can discard to move all ships docked at the lunar mine to the maintenance bay. Again, very powerful cards, and this game has always been about powerful cards, but you need to be prepared for these different cards. And so it's just nice to have more, and I like the fact that there's 8 new cards, and each card is completely different. And so that's a nice addition to the game, and it adds more variety to the tech deck. Now, I mentioned agenda cards. Here are some agenda cards. At the beginning of the game, everyone is going to get dealt 2 of these. You can never have more than 3 of them over the course of the game, although you're able to go to the orbital market and switch and use a pair of dice to take another one, and you can even take one and discard one that you haven't yet revealed. Now, each agenda card has 2 sides to it, an in-game objective and an end-game objective. Basically, that's just when you reveal it. During the game here, when you go from the lowest untied score to the highest untied score in a single turn, you reveal this card to score a victory point. Or you can wait to the end of the game, and if you have a booster pod and an experimental FTL drive, you can reveal this card and score a victory point. As opposed to this one, when you dock 4 ships totaling exactly 8 points at the alien artifact, I can reveal this to score a victory point at the game's end. If I don't have any colonies on the Pole Foothills, I can reveal this card and score a victory point. When I roll 10 or less with your fleet of 5 or more ships without using an alien tech, I can reveal this card and score 1 victory point. If at the end of the game you don't have any colonies on Bradbury Plateau. So there's all different ones here. I'm not going to show every single card here, but a lot of them have to do with the endgame conditions are very specific things, and that helps focus your strategy. While the endgame objective, you might do something that's maybe not the best move for you at that point in time, but you want to score a point. I like these because they do speed the game up a little because there's more victory points floating around, and they do add some interesting things that you are trying to accomplish. By far, however, the most interesting thing that has been added to this game, in my opinion, are the factions themselves. Now, these factions, one thing I wanted to talk about, each person is going to get one of these boards. You're going to pick one more than a number of players, and everybody gets to pick one. And so the last player gets to pick between two, but that person is actually then the first player of the game. So there's some advantages there. But one of the things I want to talk about, these are boards. This is not cardboard. This is not this is actually like its own mini board. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It feels like a game board, but it's a small one. And that's just neat. That's just it feels super high quality. I don't know else how to explain it. But let's talk about how it works in the game. What a faction boards do basically is they give each person their own special ability. Each person has their own special ability that will be listed here at the bottom, and then it also gives you another spot to put ships. You can put your own ship there and do whatever it says for free. Other players can put their ship there and they can use it, but they have to pay you. Here they have to pay you an energy to use it. So for example, the Corks conglomerated here. This guy gets an energy every turn, plus an extra energy for every territory he controls. It's a very powerful faction ability. You can also use this up here at the top, and you can spend 2 energy to get 1 ore for every area that you control on the map. So this is a very powerful one, a neat agenda that will kind of focus where you're at, because whoever controls this is likely going to get a decent amount of energy. Here we have the Homesteaders Union. The Homesteaders Union, they can colonize the planet from the 6th spot here on the board rather than the 7th spot when they're going down to the planet. So they can get their ships out faster. And then here basically is another spot to move your colony there one faster on that track. We have the Uranian Syndicate, where if nobody controls a specific spot on the board, then you can use the special ability of that spot. We have the Scavenger Fleet. When you get new ships, you can use them immediately rather than waiting a turn. The new Gaia Engineers, this is one I think is very interesting. Whenever somebody uses the terraforming station right here, you get the resources. So that's a pretty neat ability to have. Anytime someone uses a terraforming station, which is something that people use quite often, it's a fast way to get colonies on the planet, you get the resources. Not to mention, other people can use this when they use a terraforming station, and then they have a 50% chance of not losing their ship. And then here, these guys, the Proxima Centauri Scholars, can spend energy, and they can move around the different energy fields that are on the board. That's a pretty powerful thing, and then anyone can spend one to move it. One of the interesting things about this is it changes the value of a lot of cards in the game, because until this point, cards was really the only way to get those energy fields moved around, and this devalues that a little. Then we have, let's see, the Smugglers Alliance. This guy is one of the most attack-oriented because he can put any numbers out to replace someone, not just higher numbers. And here, if you put a die here, you put it here at the same time you use the Raiders Outpost. Instead of taking 4 resources or a card, you can take 4 resources and a card. Very nasty. And then the Dark Space Explorers, when you discard cards in your turn, you're allowed to discard 2 cards rather than just 1 card. And you can draw more cards using the special ability here. So now, these are the special abilities, and this is what's added in the faction pack. Basically, we have the factions themselves. We have some new tech cards. We have Purple Faction, a 5th player, and then we have the agenda cards, ways to get more victory points. For me, this is a must-buy expansion for Alien Frontiers. I really like anytime there's something that gives me a special power that nobody else has, I love that. The 5th player, I can take or leave. I mean, I'm glad they have the extra colors. The agendas are neat, and I like using them, but I don't need to use them. But the factions, I will use in every single game. Now, factions will add a little bit of complexity, especially if you're playing with new players for the first time. That might be a little bit overwhelming for them, although I've done it. I don't necessarily recommend it unless the people who are playing are people who are pretty savvy at picking up a lot of rules. But once people know what they're doing, this is a must for me. The agenda cards really change how the game is played, and it's really interesting because each player has their own special power, and it gives you more options when you're putting out your dice. Let's say you're playing a 4-player game. I now have 3 or 4, actually 4, because I can go to my own place, 4 other spots to put my dice. That adds more choices. Now, that could slow the game down, and in effect it does, although if you couple that with the agenda cards, then it speeds it up because there's more ways to get victory points. But still, I really like this. Everything inside this box fits in the base game, so you do not need to keep this. And once you add the upgrade pack and faction pack number 1, there's even more. But you'll have to check out my video for those. But again, if you like Alien Frontiers, must buy.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.
Shut the door!
That's right. Shut it.
Yeah?